Hidden truths exposed. The incredible janitor's secret that transformed lives in just 30 minutes. Charlie Johnson's heart raced whenever he envisioned stepping into the light, yet the dim glow of the flickering fluorescent bulb above him remained his only audience. Every evening, after scrubbing the floors of Willow Creek High School, he immersed himself in textbooks. Physics equations sprawled across pages like chaotic thoughts in his racing mind. But tonight, that familiar blend of unease and desperation twisted tighter in his chest. As he polished a forgotten corner of the science lab, Charlie felt the iron grip of fear again. Fear of failure, fear of being seen, and fear of the longing deep within him for recognition. He glanced at the doorway, half expecting Ms. Roberts, the new science teacher, to walk in and catch him in his clandestine world of numbers and theories. She seemed to see the students, past the walls of apathy. What if she saw him too? He cursed himself for such thoughts, feeling ashamed that the janitor was daydreaming of accolades. How could he, with his worn-out sneakers and frayed uniform, ever hope to inspire anyone when he felt invisible himself? Charlie often imagined his thoughts spiraling out to the students, rallying their dreams in a way he never could for himself. A frightening notion that made the dreams almost stifling. But tonight, everything shifted. As Ms. Roberts emerged from the shadows, he couldn't ignore the unspoken connection that charged the atmosphere. He witnessed her fight against the school's budget cuts, an urgent struggle that mirrored his inner battle, both searching for ways to spark curiosity and ignite passions. Their whispered conversations in the janitor's closet were the genesis of an idea. Science sparks. But how could he possibly contribute when he was just a janitor? For the first time, doubt clawed at him with vicious intensity. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications, so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the talent show approached, the pressure morphed into a crushing weight on his chest. Students around him tossed around ideas for performances, but Charlie felt the walls closing in as they began to expect him to participate. His spirit quaked at the thought. A janitor displaying talents in front of a crowd? The mere idea sent his mind spiraling. They didn't know him, didn't see the brilliance buried beneath the mop and bucket. Tonight, loneliness cloaked him like an old jacket, tight and suffocating. What if he faltered? What if he exposed himself to failure in front of a community that had overlooked him for years? Just when the storm of self-doubt threatened to consume him entirely, he heard a student's voice falter. They stumbled through their act, and every ounce of Charlie's resistance snapped. His body moved against the tide of instinct, scooting forward, mop clinking against the ground as he applauded. A doorway into the unknown standing wide open before him. The gym fell silent. Every eye turned toward him. The tension in the air felt electric. Charlie was no longer just the janitor. They would see him. But how could he confront that revealed identity? As he stood there, the ghosts of his past loomed like shadows at the edge of consciousness. Secrets waiting to surface, lineage never discussed. Would he embrace this moment or retreat once more into the solitude of darkness? Just then the gym door swung wide, revealing a stranger with a familiar face, intensifying the enigma that surrounded his origins. The flux of uncertainty surged through him, leaving him teetering on the brink. Could he embrace this moment, or would he drown in revelations not yet understood? The air crackled with the tension that felt palpable against Charlie's skin. The eyes of the crowd, students, teachers, parents, pierced through his uncertainty. It was as if they began to peel away the layers he had carefully built around himself, revealing the complex man hidden beneath the surface. He stood frozen, caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions, when a rush of recognition washed over him. The figure at the door was a reminder that his identity was not just about the janitor's uniform. It was about the hidden dreams he had yet to claim for himself. As he took a tentative step toward the center of the gym, every doubt warred against an emerging resolve. In that moment he decided he would not shy away. Would the stranger, the flicker of a past he had buried, help him find the courage to confront the trepidation? He recognized that this was a crossroads, an opportunity to redefine himself. The realization hit him hard. To rise above the janitor tag, he needed to harness the very fears that shackled him. "Charlie." Ms. Roberts's voice boomed through the silence, breaking his stupor. "Will you join us?" She stood at the edge of the stage, her presence a lifeline, anchoring his swirling thoughts. Her confidence radiated like warmth on a winter's day, inviting him into a space of collective creativity. For a fleeting moment, he allowed himself to picture standing on stage, not in shame, but in a role he had always yearned for, the one of an educator, a mentor, a leader. But was he ready for that? He had studied physics, delving deep into concepts that bored others to tears. The calculations ignited a fire within him that had lain dormant for far too long. Could he really share that passion? If the talent show was to be a platform, then why not let it be his first true unveiling? Charlie turned back toward the crowd, the knots in his stomach loosening. Their expectations, once a suffocating weight, transformed into a grounding force. Each hopeful face reflected a mirrored yearning for connection. Perhaps they were as eager for inspiration as he was for acknowledgement. An idea burst forth, raw and exhilarating. He could create a fusion of science and entertainment, something that would burn bright against the mundane expectations of the evening. Taking a deep breath, he called out to the audience, his voice resonating with unexpected clarity. "How about a science demonstration?" The murmurs that rippled through the gym only fueled him further. "I can show you how everyday objects can create something spectacular. A simple experiment that'll spark your curiosity." The excited response from the students' faces, the flickers of disbelief mixed with intrigue, electrified Charlie's spirit. But just as hope flickered into something more intense, a familiar face emerged from the back, stark and unmoving, the father he had lost contact with years ago. The figure was an embodiment of unresolved issues, a living testament to his family's struggles. The man's piercing gaze settled squarely on Charlie, creating a tension that paralyzed his newfound daring. Would he retreat again, allowing the shadows of his past to consume him? Or would he harness this moment, publicly confront his lineage, and in doing so, forge a path into the light? He took a step forward, leaving the specter of insecurity behind. The choice was his to make, but time was fleeting. He could feel the weight of both his past and future press against him, demanding action. Now or never, he whispered to himself. The audience, still drawn in, awaited his next move, caught in the pull of uncertainty, the kind that could either craft his destiny or sink him into deeper shadows. Charlie steadied himself, ready to redefine what it meant to be seen. But little did he know, the moment he embraced the light, the secrets he held would unravel in ways he had never imagined. Charlie's heart raced as he stood on the cusp of transformation, an electrifying blend of fear and anticipation coursing through him. He focused on the audience before him, their expectant faces blurring together into a singular entity, a collective force motivating him to step further into the light. The presence of his father loomed heavy in the background, but each pulsating heartbeat reminded him that this was not just about that relationship. It was also about rediscovering himself. As he approached the makeshift stage, the realization dawned on him. He had spent years resenting his past, but perhaps this was the very moment to confront it. He remembered late nights poring over his physics books, dreaming of challenging minds with the wonders of the universe. What if those dreams could become reality? What if he could transform despair into hope, in front of everyone? Charlie concentrated, envisioning the vibrant energy of molecules dancing as he spoke, a vivid metaphor for his own potential unraveling. "All right, everyone," he called out, galvanizing the audience's attention. "Today, I'm going to show you how a simple chemical reaction can turn everyday ingredients into something explosive. Figuratively speaking." Laughter erupted from some of the students. They were intrigued. For the first time, he felt he was connecting not just with their youthful curiosity, but also with the echoes of his own childhood aspirations. He reached into his bag, retrieving the materials for the demonstration. Thoughts raced through him as he set up, each component a reflection of his journey. Vinegar met baking soda, a chemical partnership signifying the fusion of past grievances and present acceptance. He breathed deeply as colors swirled and fizzed before their eyes, a tangible manifestation of his emerging identity. But as the volcano of bubbly foam erupted, a part of him still grappled with his father's presence. Could he truly break free from that shadow? As if on cue, his father's steel blue eyes pierced through the chaos, unyielding and unrelenting. There was a challenge there, simmering beneath the surface. Charlie's adrenaline surged as he began to speak louder, both to the crowd and to himself. "This is about more than just a science experiment," he declared, turning his back to the past for that brief moment. "It's about understanding that our experiences, good and bad, shape who we are. We explode into something beautiful when we combine curiosity with courage." The crowd responded, their cheers buoying him forward, amplifying his defiance against the weight of his lineage. In that instant, he saw his father's hardened expression shift, perhaps recognizing the depth of Charlie's resolve. The air between them shifted, unspooled tension giving way to a fragile understanding. Every bubbling foam surge seemed to signify Charlie's desire to redefine that fractured relationship, not just for himself, but for the man who used to hold titles like dad and role model. The realization struck him. The very act of generating delight and wonder in others lit a path for his own healing. A brief flicker of something unnameable passed between him and the man who had caused so much inner turmoil. Was it pride, regret, hope? He was unsure. Maybe understanding came with its own set of reactions, transformations more profound than chemicals could ever achieve. As the demonstration wrapped up, applause echoed in the gym, a symphony of approval that reverberated through Charlie's entire being. He stood there, no longer merely a janitor in their eyes, but a burgeoning leader ignited by the fires of his own experience. The moment was electric, but doubt slipped back in. As the applause faded, he realized his father had yet to approach him. There was a choice lingering in the air, heavy with possibility. Could Charlie summon the courage to bridge the gap? What would he say when the moment for confrontation finally arrived? And would it dismantle the walls he had built so carefully, or would it only solidify the very distance he sought to close? Charlie steadied his breath as he scanned the crowd, awaiting the next inevitable step in this tumultuous journey of self-discovery. The applause faded, but the resonance of his presentation still engaged Charlie's thoughts. He felt lighter somehow, as if the weight of years spent in his father's shadow was beginning to lift. Yet the air hung thick with uncertainty. Should he approach his father? That daunting question simmered in his mind like a volatile chemical reaction waiting to be triggered. As students began to file out, still buzzing with excitement, one particular voice caught his attention. "Mr. Charlie, that was amazing. Can you teach us more science next time?" A girl with bright eyes and an eager expression seemed hopeful, and for a fleeting moment, Charlie was consumed by the young enthusiasm. This was what he had wanted, to inspire, to ignite curiosity. He smiled at her. "Of course, I'd love to." The moment of acceptance shifted his inner dialogue. What if he redirected that same enthusiasm inward? Charlie's gaze flitted back to his father, still set apart from the crowd, arms crossed and expression unreadable. It took immense effort to resist the wave of resentment threatening to pull him under. Why was it so difficult for his father to simply join in this moment of joy? Charlie took a deep breath and decided to allow action to guide his thoughts. He shoved his hands deep into his pockets and ambled toward his father, deliberately placing one foot in front of the other, a small but significant symbolic leap. Each step crystallized his intention. This wasn't just for him. It was for that little boy who waited in vain for his father's approval. "Dad," he began, a knot of trepidation tightening in his gut. The word felt foreign, weighted with both longing and apprehension. Charlie's heart raced as he pondered all the potential reactions waiting to unfold: anger, indifference, perhaps something resembling pride. His father looked at him, an emotion flickering briefly across his face before settling into stoicism. "You did well there," he finally stated. though the compliment felt as lukewarm as the air between them. "Thanks," Charlie replied, choosing to embrace the compliment, however small it was. It felt good to share something I care about. For a second, silence stretched ominously between them, thickening with unexpressed words. Charlie's resolve hardened. "I want to do more of this. Not for you, or the title, but for me." His father's brow furrowed for the first time, as if he were deciphering some profound riddle. "What do you mean? You're a janitor. That's what you do," he understated with an edge of confusion, the implications of those words slicing through Charlie like a bitter tonic. Rejection stung, but Charlie steeled himself. "No, being a janitor is just part of who I am right now. There's so much more I can do." His voice strengthened, emboldened by the remnants of the audience's cheers still echoing in his mind. "I want to challenge myself, to lead, to explore." His father's expression warped into something unreadable, lines of age and anxiety deepening. "You can't just change overnight, Charlie." "There's no overnight," Charlie shot back before he could fully filter his response, risking the fragile ground he had just begun to carve out. "It's a process. I'm ready to embrace that process." The moment hung heavy, and doubt crept back. Had he jeopardized everything with that spike of defiance? He had felt the urge to confront, yet what if this only pushed his father further away? Charlie quelled those thoughts, determined to ride the waves of discomfort. "I want to show others that they can redefine themselves too, just like I'm trying to do," he added, searching his father's gaze, hoping to find something more than anger or disdain. The tension hung thick, begging for resolution, yet an unsettling truth loomed. Would his father ever acknowledge the potential Charlie saw for himself? In that brief silence, as Charlie faced the man who both haunted and shaped his identity, the corners of possibility creaked open. He realized that this was only the beginning, a single step in a long journey ahead. Could this moment lead to a deeper understanding, or would it fracture into deeper misunderstanding? Charlie found himself teetering on the edge of discovery, knowing that clarity awaited him just beyond the threshold of confrontation. "Now, what's next?" he thought to himself, unwrapping the potential contained within that question. As the tension between father and son simmered, Charlie sensed the burning need for clarity in his own life. His father's indifferent reaction stung, leaving an unsettling void. Yet, it manifested as a catalyst, urging him to confront not only his father, but also the internal battles he had long neglected. The space around them felt charged, as if each breath was an invitation for revelation. "Why do you keep holding on to this idea of me?" Charlie asked suddenly, surprising even himself with the edge in his voice. The words hung suspended in the air, demanding seriousness. His father's eyes narrowed slightly, revealing that the words had struck a nerve. "Because it's the truth. You're a janitor. You've always been a janitor," he replied defensively, a steeliness creeping into his tone. Charlie's chest tightened. He had spent so long hiding behind that label, grappling with the implications it carried. Yet now, the desperation for change coursed through him. "But I'm more than that. I'm ready to be more than that." His father scoffed lightly, a dismissive sound that made Charlie's heart clench. "You think a few impressive words can change years of reality? Life doesn't work that way." Deep down, Charlie wondered if his father believed those words, or if they were merely an extension of his own insecurities. The internal conflict stirred. Was he truly capable of transcending that identity? At that moment, he felt his perception shifting. The prospect of transformation was not a distant dream, but a choice he could make each day. "Maybe you're right," Charlie admitted, seeking to lock eyes with his father. "But maybe our realities don't need to confine us. What if I did something different? Something impactful? Not just for your approval, but for myself and for those who might need to know change is possible." His father appeared momentarily taken aback, the hardness around his visage wavering. "Like what? What could you possibly do?" Charlie felt the adrenaline of resolve surge through him. "I want to teach, to empower. I've sparked interest in those kids today. I want to cultivate that. I want to run workshops, talk to people about science, share what I love. For the first time, a glimmer of curiosity crossed his father's face, but it was instantly masked by skepticism. "And you think that will somehow, what, make you happy? Turn a janitor into a scientist? Why not?" Charlie felt his voice grow steady with conviction. "I'm just beginning to find out who I am. You've molded me with your expectations, but now it's time for me to carve out my own path. I refuse to let your definition of me be my only reality." Silence enveloped them again, thicker this time with the weight of Charlie's words. The remnants of a childhood spent battling for validation now surged to the forefront. He stood at the precipice of self-definition, the power of choice igniting within him. What if this confrontation with his father was not just about their scattered relationship, but the start of Charlie's journey toward personally aligning with his desires? Charlie took a step back, letting the raw honesty of his voice fill the air. The impulse to prove himself strengthened the unfolding courage within him. "I won't let fear dictate my path anymore. If I must be a janitor today, I will still be a leader tomorrow." Witnessing that flicker of resistance on his father's face now felt empowering rather than daunting. This was Charlie's moment to confront both his father and the chains of expectation binding him. As he turned to leave, the seed of determination nestled deep within him. His phone vibrated in his pocket, a reminder of an inspiring invitation he'd received earlier that week, a chance to host an informal science workshop at the community center. He hesitated, then looked over his shoulder one last time at the steady figure of his father. "I'm not afraid anymore. You'll see, Dad. This is just the beginning." With that declaration echoing in his mind, Charlie stepped out into the daylight, exhilarated by the prospect of claiming his future. But constricting doubts still lingered in his process. How would he manage to fulfill his aspirations without losing sight of who he was alongside his father's expectations? The uncertainty loomed large, an uncharted territory that both terrified and exhilarated him. What awaited him in the next leap toward his dreams? He felt the weight of all his choices stretching before him like a vast, uncertain expanse. Charlie walked down the street, heat radiating from the pavement as though it was reflecting the intensity of his thoughts. With every step, he concentrated on the feeling of his sneakers connecting with the ground, a rhythm that anchored him and countered the swirl of anxiety bubbling in his stomach. The invitation to lead the workshop echoed in his mind, a drumbeat nudging him toward action. As he approached the community center, his heart raced. The looming structure appeared both inviting and intimidating, a metaphor for the journey he was about to embark on. He could almost hear the echoes of his father's doubts playing in his head, but he pushed them down. This was his moment to show both his father and himself that he could step into a new role beyond that ingrained label of janitor. The room was still empty when he arrived, a wide open space lined with folding chairs that promised potential. Charlie set his bag down on the table and surveyed the area. It wasn't just a space for a workshop. It was a canvas for his aspirations, a platform to share the enthusiasm for science that had long been buried under layers of self-doubt. He stepped to the front of the room, breathing deeply to calm the lingering nerves. He had a vision. He could see himself standing boldly before eager faces, sharing knowledge, igniting curiosity. But doubt crept in, a gnawing thought about whether anyone would even show up. What if he was just fooling himself? With each moment of hesitation, he questioned his motives. Was he truly committed to making a difference, or was he merely rebelling against his father's expectations? The purpose of this workshop was both a beacon of hope and a mirror reflecting his insecurities. It was to teach others, yes, but also a way to prove to himself that he was capable of more than the life he had been boxed into. He leaned against the table, fingers brushing over a stack of notebooks he had prepared. The notes were filled with engaging experiments and simple explanations of complex phenomena that could spark excitement in young minds. Just the prospect of sharing this knowledge pumped adrenaline through his veins, but clarity twisted into fog as he remembered the kids he had interacted with earlier, their fragile hopes resting on a scattering of unfulfilled dreams. What if he couldn't ignite that spark? What if they left disappointed? He shook those thoughts away, dialing down to focus on his own narrative. He had to transform the fear into determination. After all, wasn't that what he was fighting for? Showing others that their circumstances didn't define their capabilities. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps disrupted his reverie. A small group of children entered, eyes wide with curiosity, laughter spilling into the space as they took their seats. Joy coursed through him, a sudden rush of warmth that replaced the cold dread he had carried moments earlier. "Hey there, I'm Charlie," he greeted, smoothing his hands down his jeans, forcing confidence into his voice. The children, seemingly unfazed by his title, introduced themselves with a mix of enthusiasm and uncertainty. In that moment, Charlie felt a shift within. What began as a desire to break free of his past was now morphing into a realization that he could impact these lives in a way that transcended his own struggles. As he started speaking about his passion for science, a part of him worriedly glanced back toward his father's judgment. Each word he uttered felt like a small rebellion against a lifetime spent seeking approval. But this time, the motivation felt different. It was fueled not by validation, but by an intrinsic desire to inspire. Eventually, as the session unfolded and hands waved excitedly for their chance to participate, Charlie realized he was no longer just a janitor. He was a guide and a mentor, cultivating potential in others while nurturing his own. The walls of fear that had long constrained him began to fracture, giving way to the vibrant energy of possibility. But just then, a thought flashed uninvited. What if they didn't connect? What if all this effort went unnoticed, buried beneath the noise of their everyday lives? Charlie felt the weight of that fear again as eager voices filled the space, but alongside it came an unexpected surge of hope. He had taken the first step into a future undefined, a step that promised growth and depth beyond what he had known. What lay ahead was still uncertain, yet the persistent echo of his father's voice faded as he spoke not just for others, but for himself. Charlie wondered how far he could push this newfound identity before facing deeper challenges. With the children laughing and engaging, a sense of bravery washed over him. Perhaps confronting his past and facing his father's expectations was only the beginning of a greater journey. As the workshop progressed, he noticed some of the kids beginning to fumble awkwardly with science materials, recalling how he once felt clumsy in school, not able to fit in or belonging. A determination settled in his chest. He would not allow those kids to feel the same way. How much influence could he wield if he fully embraced this role? The question haunted him as he imagined the cascading ramifications of his newfound commitment. In this palpable moment of exploration, Charlie recognized that the true challenge looming ahead wasn't merely about stepping out from behind a label. It was about discovering the depths of his abilities in a world teeming with possibilities. Charlie wasn't his father's version of himself. He was a teacher in the making, igniting minds one experiment at a time. But could he face the lurking doubts head-on? The real test was yet to unfold, and in that uncertainty lay the seed of real transformation. As the workshop unfolded, Charlie's awareness shifted. He began to see beyond the immediate connection with the children. Their eager faces mirrored the passion he once felt, an unquenchable thirst for knowledge he thought he had lost. The hesitant voices that formed sentences quickly transformed into a symphony of excitement. With every question prompted by Charlie's enthusiasm, he could sense the air thickening with potential, charging the atmosphere like static before a storm. He turned toward a table where a young girl named Mia was carefully attempting a simple volcano experiment. She squinted, measuring out baking soda with the precision of a surgeon, yet her hands trembled slightly. In that moment, Charlie recognized something in her. Her determination echoed his. "Great job, Mia. Just a little more baking soda, and then we'll make it explode," he encouraged, his voice slicing through her anxiety like a beacon. Her face broke into a tentative smile, the kind that signaled an internal victory. It struck him then. Each small victory mattered. As he guided the children through the experiments, he began sharing snippets of his own life, changing the narrative surrounding his past. He revealed how he once feared the classroom and hesitated to raise his hand. He spoke about transformation, not as something inherent but as a skill to be practiced and refined, just like their hands-on projects. Yet, although his words landed with clarity, Charlie found himself grappling with a deeper conflict. Would his authenticity resonate without drifting too close to self-pity? He noticed the children hung on his words, but a knife edge of doubt gnawed at him. If they recognized his insecurities, what would they think? Would they respect him? Could he maintain their trust while still revealing the rawness of his journey? The workshop continued, laughter blossoming amidst chemical reactions. Charlie felt the way his apprehension slowly loosened its grip, transforming into a contagious energy that sparked vibrant conversation. He encouraged them to experiment, improvising as they went. He didn't just want them to follow instructions. He wanted them to think like scientists. Halfway through, he noticed Mia. This time, she was in the zone. Her once timid demeanor had shifted into spirited engagement, and Charlie felt his heart swell with pride. It was in those small moments that he recognized his mission, fostering resilience and confidence. If Mia could rise from a shaky start to inspire others, what was holding him back from doing the same? Time slipped away, but with each running experiment, every eruption of laughter, and each twinkling gaze, a realization dawned on him. The limits imposed by others or himself were dissolving. He was beginning to manifest the idea of a mentor, not by traditional means, but through empathetic experience and shared vulnerability. As he prepared to wrap up, Charlie decided to open the floor for questions. "What do you guys think it takes to be a scientist?" he prompted, sensing this was where he could invite them to view science not just as a subject, but as a bridge to understanding themselves. Hands shot up in the air, confidence gleaming in their eyes. A wave of answers cascaded forth, painting a vivid picture of their burgeoning ideas. Yet amid their optimistic responses, he caught a glimpse of his own reflection. An undercurrent of uncertainty lingered, dripping with the remnants of old doubts. He was about to provide reassurance when the door creaked open. A familiar face emerged, his father, lingering at the threshold, an expression of skepticism etched across his features. In that instant, the room stilled. Charlie's heart raced, an electric jolt shot through him. His father's mere presence, like an anchor, threatened to pull him back into a world of dismissiveness and unresolved challenges. Charlie stood frozen, the dilemmas pressing down on him. Would he risk this fragile transformation, this advocacy for self-empowerment, by confronting his father? For a fleeting moment, a decision settled at the forefront of his mind. This was a pivotal moment, a crossroads, where he could either shrink back into the shadows or embrace the light he had begun to illuminate. The weight of the room's expectancy shifted. But could he truly confront the voice that had haunted him for years? Mia caught his gaze, her questioning eyes mirroring his dilemma. What was courage if not facing the very doubts that sought to undermine him? As his father's eyes locked onto his, the tension hung thick, wrapping around them both. What would he choose, fight or flight? The answer was crucial, and Charlie felt the anticipation crackling, the moment of truth looming just before him. In that heavy silence, Charlie felt the world narrowing to the two of them. His father's expression was scrutinizing, as if he were evaluating him for the first time. Just moments before, Charlie had stood as a mentor and an example of growth in front of the children. But now he felt like the boy he used to be, shriveled beneath his father's disapproval. As Charlie took a careful breath, he was struck by the realization that this could either shatter the newfound confidence he had discovered or become a defining catalyst in his journey to authenticity. Could he wield the potential he had awakened during the workshop and redirect that energy towards this long-standing personal conflict? "Dad," he began, the word tasting foreign in his mouth. He steadied himself, conscious of the children still watching, their wide eyes darting between the two generations. "This isn't what I imagined, but I'm here." His father's brow furrowed, the shadow of skepticism looming larger. "Is this a joke, Charlie? You're playing scientist with children as a career? I thought you wanted serious work." Each word stung, reminiscent of years spent trying to earn his father's respect. But instead of recoiling, anger surged through him, the kind that had simmered unseen. "It's not a joke," he asserted, an intensity coursing through his voice. "I'm trying to show them the beauty of curiosity, the idea that learning never ends. Wasn't that important to you? The silence thickened, tangled with his father's skepticism and the hope that flickered in Charlie's heart. The children watched, their trust now hinging not just on Charlie's experiments, but on his stance against a figure synonymous with disapproval. "I'm trying to build something here," he continued more quietly, but with unwavering resolve. "Something meaningful." For the first time, his father seemed taken aback. The tension shifted, though doubt still etched his expression. "Meaningful? You think this is how you get to where you need to be?" Before Charlie could answer, Mia's small voice piped up from the back. "We're learning, Mr. Charlie. Science is great. Right, everyone?" "Yeah," echoed voices, affirming their experience, hands cheering in the air, their innocence puncturing the tension. Charlie felt a swell of warmth, a protective instinct over these young minds that had begun to trust him. The laughter buoyed him, but he knew he couldn't let this moment slide by, lingering as spectators in their own lives. "See? They see the value. Why can't you?" His father's reply was a mixture of pride buried under doubt, a challenge to uphold what Charlie believed. This isn't the way to build a future. But then something changed. A glimmer of recognition flickered behind his father's eyes. Was it understanding? The realization that Charlie was no longer the hesitant child who needed coaxing to take initiative. "I'm not backing down," he heard himself say. "This is my choice, my journey." The confrontation settled in a stunned stillness, the air quivering with unspoken consequences. Standing there, he felt the weight of expectations crashing down on both of them, but he also felt lighter as a part of him unfurled toward openness. An unfamiliar sensation nestled in his chest. Freedom. Among all the words that could be spoken, would it be enough to bridge the years of estrangement? "Listen, son," his father finally said, his voice softer yet still edged with concern. "I just want what's best for you." Charlie's heart raced as he contemplated his next words. "Maybe you need to let me define what's best for myself." In that moment, amid the tension and the children's bright eyes, he recognized an essential truth about both himself and his father. They were at a crossroads, and the choices made here could redefine their relationship. As the tension simmered, Charlie caught Mia's hopeful smile, bolstered by the acceptance he sought within himself. Could he navigate the chasm that had separated him from his father while standing firm in his voice? The next step grew clearer. The choice to confront not only the past, but also the promise of growth rooted in vulnerability. Charlie inhaled deeply, feeling the powerful mix of courage and fear. This was about much more than just him. It was about finding common ground, a chance for mutual understanding. But would his father be willing to meet him there? Would they step back from years of hurt and disappointment into a space for healing and growth? The answer loomed ahead, tinged with both potential and peril. The moment hung poised, a delicate balance teetering between breakthrough and setback. Could Charlie not only mend his relationship with his father, but also redefine what being a mentor truly meant? The question lingered, full of promise and uncertainty, as he prepared to face whatever truth remained hidden between them. As the silence stretched, Charlie felt the weight of his father's gaze. It felt as if each moment frozen in time was a reflection of their lives, the choices made and the paths taken. The children's excitement hovered in the air, delivering a potent reminder of why he had stepped into this role in the first place. Not for validation, but to ignite a spark of curiosity in those young minds, to show them that their questions mattered. "Charlie," his father finally broke the stillness, the skepticism beginning to fade ever so slightly. "But what about your future? What about real jobs? Real success?" The question didn't pierce as it had before. Instead, it fueled Charlie's resolve. He had spent too long defining his self-worth through another's eyes. "Success isn't just about titles or salaries, Dad. It's about impact. Look at these kids. They're engaged, inspired. I'm teaching them how to think critically, how to challenge the status quo." His father's expression shifted, confusion battling with something almost like pride. And if they don't find it meaningful, what if they don't pursue it? Then they learn to define their own paths, just like I'm starting to. The passion in Charlie's voice solidified his stance. I want to empower them, Dad, to know that their interests can lead to something beautiful, even if it looks different from what we imagined. The children, sensing the rising emotions, started to squirm and whisper among themselves, their innocence narrowing the wedge between the two men. "Mr. Charlie," one called out, "can we do that experiment again?" Their enthusiasm was infectious, igniting a warmth within Charlie that fought against the chill of his father's doubt. "See?" Charlie turned to his father, signaling with his chin toward the group. "That's what I'm here for, not to conform, but to connect." And as he spoke, a revelation washed over him. Connection was fundamental, not only for his relationship with the children, but also with his father. If he could confront the past while embracing the present, perhaps there was a chance for both of them. "Dad, I know this is a lot for you," Charlie continued, holding steady his father's eyes. "But we're both learning, aren't we? I'm trying to navigate this as best I can, just like you did at one point. You're my dad, and I still need your guidance, even if it's hard for you to see what I'm doing." There was a palpable tension in the air as Charlie's words settled. For the first time, it wasn't just about his work. It was about the relationship, an invitation to step closer to understanding. "Do you remember when you took me to the museum? The way I lit up in front of those exhibits?" he asked, drawing on a shared memory. "That's what I want to create for them. Wonder and discovery." His father's brow unfurrowed, if only slightly. It was as if a sliver of clarity pierced through years of misunderstanding. Charlie seized on it, hoping to build a bridge between their generations. "Dad, I'm not asking for approval. I'm asking for connection." The room felt charged with unacknowledged emotions. The laughter of the children mingled with the sincerity of their conversation, casting a warm light in the heavy atmosphere. "Maybe." His father hesitated, the words tangling in his perception. "Maybe I've been looking at this the wrong way. I was afraid you were throwing away opportunity." "I am seeking opportunity, just a different one." Charlie centered his thoughts, sensing the shift. But before he could delve deeper, a loud crash from the back of the room snapped him out of his spiraling thoughts. A plastic bottle had tipped over, cascading a layer of colorful beads across the floor. The children erupted in laughter, their chaos a stark contrast to the gravity of the moment before. Charlie chuckled, the tension breaking momentarily, but the laughter only masked the deeper conflict that remained between him and his father. "Let's clean up," Charlie called, suddenly eager to channel this lighter atmosphere into the realities still hanging unspoken. As they knelt together side by side, scooping up the beads, a thought snagged in Charlie's mind. This wasn't the end of their conversation, but merely a pause, a moment to regroup. The real challenge lay ahead, navigating the complexities of their evolving dynamic. The experience was becoming a living entity, one that demanded both recognition and reckoning. Could they rebuild a bridge not only for their relationship but also for their shared understanding of success? With beads in hand and thoughts swirling, Charlie realized he had taken the first step toward truly redefining what it meant to be a mentor, not only to the children but also to his father. "Maybe it's time we both start defining our success on our own terms," he thought, and with that, a new challenge began to unfold. How could they establish a new narrative together, one rooted in respect and exploration? The next chapter of their story was just beginning to take shape. As Charlie looked at the scattered beads rolling across the floor, he felt a symbolic shift occurring within him, a moment of fusion between the past and the future. The laughter of the children softened the tension that had thickened in the air, prompting him to realize that every bead, every project, was a metaphor for the connections he sought to build, both as a mentor and as a son. Cleaning up the mess side by side with his father, the act became the unification of past grievances and future ambitions. They were no longer two distant figures locked in conflicting narratives, but contributors to a new story, one that illuminated the potential of understanding and acceptance. "Dad," Charlie began while collecting a handful of beads, "it's not about discarding a career path, but rediscovering what fuels our spirits, right?" His father looked at him through a lens that was slowly adjusting, no longer fixated solely on fear, but now beginning to see the yearning beneath Charlie's aspirations. "I suppose. I just wanted you to have a secure future," he admitted, his voice faltering slightly. Charlie felt a rush of gratitude, sensing that perhaps there was a dawning recognition. "Dad, security doesn't equate to being confined. It can mean stepping into the unknown with the confidence that I am forging a distinct path." For the first time, he witnessed the glimmer of contemplation shine in his father's eyes as they gathered those tiny beads, each representing fragile but meaningful moments of clarity, growth, and connection. His heart swelled with a profound sense of accomplishment, not for conquering a singular battle, but for embarking on the journey toward a more enriched relationship. As the workshop came to an end, Charlie's pulse raced with the thrill of transformation. The children were no longer mere participants. They were engaged explorers, spirited champions of science and curiosity. Their excitement ignited a fire within him, a powerful signal that his endeavor was infusing joy and knowledge into their lives. The overflow of their energy redefined success, not as a solitary victory, but as a shared triumph. Afterward, with the remnants of the workshop still alive and the remnants of laughter rippling in the air, Charlie found the courage to initiate a deeper conversation with his father. "I truly believe this is just the start, Dad. We need to keep breaking the walls that separate us. Together." His father blinked slowly, a contemplative expression forming. "I think I would like to understand this new vision, Charlie, if you're open to it." The relief radiated through Charlie's entire being. There was validation in recognizing that the seeds of change planted during the workshop reached beyond the classroom. It resonated within the familial bond they had formed through shared aspirations. "You know," Charlie continued with newfound confidence, "I want to host more workshops. I believe we could team up, maybe even appeal to students through collaborative science projects. You'd be a great addition. We can show them together that success evolves and adapts." His father's features softened as he contemplated the prospect. Maybe I've been a little narrow-minded about how things should look." With shared interests guiding their conversation into the future, Charlie saw the murky limits of the past evaporating like clouds in a warming sun. Each bead picked up represented a connection, not just to the children who inspired him, but to the man beside him who, with effort and understanding, could become part of the journey. "Let's redefine our roles, you as a father who empowers, and me as a son who inspires. We are not just bound by blood, but also by aspirations, right?" As he spoke, the words flowed with sincerity, filled with the risks he planned to take. The silence that followed was a thread unspooling, a moment caught between a father's doubts and a son's ambitions. "Charlie, I'd like that," his father finally said, his voice mirroring a tentative sense of hope. They rose, beads once precariously scattered, now repositioned with intent. The room resonated with purpose, and so did their relationship. Charlie recognized that he had exceeded expectations. He wasn't just the janitor, he was also a mentor, an encourager, a bridge-building son forging a new legacy. As they walked outside together, the sun hung low in the sky, igniting a warmth they both felt internally. Whether they could navigate this transformation would require patience, compassion, and effort. But Charles had crossed the threshold. In that moment, amid the remnants of laughter and science, Charlie felt a sense of fulfillment radiate through him, a victory over his own narrative. He had taken the risk to embrace both his past and his potential, stepping into a role where being seen meant being heard, being understood, and most importantly, changing lives, including his own. "Let's create something impactful, Dad," he professed, holding on to the hope that their journey toward understanding had just begun. The world was wide open before them, awaiting exploration. And as they moved forward together, Charlie realized this journey was as much for himself as it was for those whose lives he hoped to inspire. Now the time has come for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that uplift and inspire. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these life-changing narratives alive. Comment your reactions and theories about this powerful conclusion below. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this story of transformation and resilience. You need to be part of this journey. Showing your support matters more than ever. Don't wait even one more second to share.